All right, folks, happy Tuesday. Great to be with you as always. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. All right, I know I mentioned this last week. Those of you who are longtime loyal listeners, a little bit of an update. If you will listen to the program on the podcast, if you take the podcast version form of this program, nothing will change for you whatsoever. The only difference really will be that the show will be available in the morning, first thing in the morning. So that's good news. But we will be moving in the 16th of February to a 1-hour show format. And we'll record a podcast and then air it at 6 p.m. here on KXNT. So the show will no longer air from 1 to 3 p.m. It will air at 6 p.m. And if you want the show before 6, you can get the podcast and listen to it there. Wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, basically any of the platforms will be on all of them. Now, my email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. If you've got any questions about this, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll put you in touch with producer Robbie, and we'll tell you exactly what you need to do to be able to get the podcast. Now, today, lots going on. Let's go through the top stories right now that are shaping the country and the world. Number 5, and this absolutely made me laugh. That's why I want to share it with you. So Canada decided to do a screw you to America on trade. Okay, we'll show you, Donald Trump. We'll show you, America. We're going to open free trade with China. And the first act of this was Canada dropped tariffs on Chinese electric cars. Well, guess who makes great electric cars in China? Elon Musk, aka Tesla. That's right. And guess which company is already on the ground with Tesla dealerships and other facilities that support Tesla ownership? It's not the Chinese EV companies. It's Tesla. Absolute masterstroke move. Basically, Canada allows 49,000 Chinese electric cars per year, and my guess is that 48,000 of those that will be sold this year will be Teslas. Fantastic. Number 4 of things going on to be aware of: a high-ranking Iranian government officer, the foreign minister, basically something equivalent to Marco Rubio here in the U.S., Secretary of State, was arrested and charged with treason for speaking to opposition leaders. This is huge because it shows the extent to which the existing government is compromised, and I think is an indicator that Iran may fall without any additional U.S. military intervention, which of course would be good for us and the world. Now, number 3. In Virginia, they had an election. The state of Virginia, and Republicans were absolutely trounced there by Democrats. Republicans lost, and the state is now a firmly blue state. Well, guess what the Democrats there did to introduce in the session? First thing, right out of the gate, it was pre-filed a night before the open of the new legislative session. They're actually putting in a ban on hand counting ballots. So Democrats doing Democrat things, right? Why would anybody want to hand count ballots? Why would we want any amount of accountability in elections? This is the first thing the Democrats did. And by the way, there are other parts of this bill. For example, on immigration, it guarantees illegal aliens free education. And it bans the arrest of illegal immigrants in courthouses. Crime, lowers criminal penalty for robberies, removes mandatory minimum sentences, more taxes, allows speed cameras, ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, the entire shebang of Democrat policy that has worked so well from California to Massachusetts, from Oregon to New York State. So they're doubling down on this. People never learn, and you think you can go, you think you're going to elect some reasonable Democrats. Good luck with that. Not going to happen. Number two, a big announcement, or I guess a number of sources are saying that this is what's happening behind the deal. I guess there's a big cash offer that Trump supposedly has offered to buy Greenland from Denmark. $700 billion. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of money. It would also be, there's also a 100,000 per resident. So every resident of Greenland would get $100K. Yeah. So, and look, I mean, there's people who are saying, yeah, that seems about right. NBC News is reporting some figures around that number. So just be aware that this seems to be ramping up. No, an invasion is not imminent, but writing a big check probably in the cards. And of course, the number one story here over the weekend, we were off, of course, yesterday, was this St. Paul, Minnesota protest. It's not even a protest, it's a terrorist takeover of a church on Sunday. The church was stormed by anti-Trump, pro-illegal immigrant activists. They had journalists in tow, aka Don Lemon, who is the most unserious person in the news, period. And I'm going to talk about this here a little bit because I guess the claim here was that someone, the church leader there, one of the pastors, claim is that he worked in ICE, that he has, a day job is working with ICE. So it's one of the reasons they claim, some people claim the church was targeted. Now, I actually, as we look at the story, and by the way, if you have not seen the video, if you haven't seen what happened, this wasn't a protest outside of the church. This wasn't even, a quick, shebang going in there, saying a few things and then leaving. This was hostile, in your face violence perpetrated on children, on women, on families. It was absolutely despicable. Here's what it would have been like. This one guy is filming himself berating individuals. Some of these people are 12, 13, 15 years old. It's sick. Imagine this happening to you or to your family.
Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You're pretending to be Christians, but we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy life while people are starving. Shame.
Now, okay. Yeah. I always say this, right? These people are crazy. The leftist radicals that are running free and amok in 2026 are insane. The problem is that insane people can hurt you. Insane people can damage you. They can kill you. Of note, and again, I don't see a lot of people saying this, where were the police? If you live in a place like Minnesota, if you live in St. Paul, in Minneapolis, if you live in Los Angeles, the state to whom you pay an incredible amount of taxes every year will not come and protect you if you're a conservative. The state wants these agitators to come out and do this damage. By the way, I'll get into this some bit. There were actually government officers and high-ranking state employees and city employees who were there involved in the protest. Again, the police did nothing to make any arrests. Now, this is a watershed moment. And of course, the Trump Attorney General's office, Pam Bondi, Harmy Dillon, talking a tough talk about what they're going to do here and charges that are going to be filed. So I'll take you through the legalistics of this and what can be done to hold the people here accountable, including Don Lemon, which is a story unto itself. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. This hour of the program brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, a quick word about what to do if you're in an accident. Now, I was on Vegas TV today talking about insurance rates, which are going through the roof. My rates have gone up. Everybody's rates are going up. In fact, we are just over 6% up year over year when the national average is below 1% increases. So Vegas, if you live in Las Vegas, your rates are going up. But basically anywhere you're in the country, insurance rates are going up. And why is that? Huge part of this is there's a tremendous amount of bad driving. There's also vehicle theft. That's a driving cause. And of course, there's fraud. There are a lot of shady lawyers who work together with other unscrupulous operators, and they set accidents up, and this is a known thing, right? But the problem is when you have a legitimate injury. And guess what? When this happens, you want to do the right thing, right? You don't want to make a giant case out of it. You don't want to go in and take something that you're not entitled to. You just want what's fair. And most people come to a rude awakening when that happens. They go through the process. They spend hours and hours and hours providing paperwork, providing information, talking on the phone, answering phone calls, text messages, and the like, only to have the end of the claim come around and realize that you're thousands of dollars upside down in an accident that you did not cause. It is maddening. Don't let that happen to you. You want to hire a reputable lawyer. You want to hire a firm that isn't going to take advantage on your behalf or anybody else's. You want to have alignment with your lawyer on how to proceed in these cases. But you really, what you absolutely want is to make sure that you get what's fair at the end of a case. And that won't happen coming to them palms up. Trust me. Sam and Ash Injury Law is that firm. 800-304-2000. 800-304-2000. Go to website, check it out, Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. All right, folks, What's Right Show is on. Yes, my email, sam@what'srightshow.com. So, yeah, I mean, to underscore, I mentioned in our top 5 stories today, the state of Virginia, Democrats moving very quickly there to ban hand counting of ballots. So recounts, hand counting, recounts, ballots, can't do it. Here's a fun fact, and this has been reported by local news in Virginia over the years. In the 2 previous elections, the now incumbent governor, Abigail Spanberger, was about to lose when she was a representative, a member of the House. And then mysteriously, the vote totals were, guided by an invisible hand, and a flash drive would appear with a statistically impossible, unbelievable number of Democratic votes, and they would get counted. And what her party, now that she's in control and she benefited from these kind of shenanigans, what her party is looking to now do is make it impossible on day one to audit an election. And if you think that's coincidental, then I don't know what to tell you. Just saying it. There's people have been following this for years, and this is the 7th district in the U.S. House. Look it up. And the Democrat fraud machine is sophisticated and well-oiled in that state. Well, yeah, I mean, look, she was, what was she, a case officer or something at the CIA? I mean, these people are, Abigail Spanberger, well, she's the one who won that race, supposedly fair and square in November. And so, yeah, she's the governor now, and the majority of Dems in both houses. Not much the Republicans can do at this point. All right. What can Trump do about what happened in St. Paul, Minnesota? This was egregious. If you saw what occurred, a bunch of rabid protesters stormed a church and terrorized everybody there. And the police, local police, didn't do anything about it. Protesters were in the church. Basically hijacked the proceeding. And, of course, I look at things as a lawyer. I look at it and try to figure out what can be done. And the quick answer is there's a number of state and federal laws that were violated by this by this action. Looking at it first, I mean, the state laws are interesting because, of course, there's a trespass. The church is private property. Right? The protesters entered private property and were asked to leave. And this, at the very least, is a misdemeanor, right? And, 90 days in jail, you got some fines, it's a thing. Interfering with a religious observance is a separate penalty. And that fits the facts of this pretty straight up. Disorderly conduct. Brawling, fighting, disturbing an assembly, offensive, boisterous conduct. That's the standard. Again, that in the Minneapolis state code would apply. Now, in order for these prosecutions to be brought, the state and local authorities would need to bring them. But Keith Ellison is the Minnesota Attorney General. He's a Democrat partisan hack. He's the guy that was caught on tape, basically, giving a nod and a wink to some of these Somali fraudsters who are in the news, some of whom have already been prosecuted and convicted going back to the Biden administration. He's knee deep in all this. He has a vested interest in disrupting ICE, in disrupting Trump and the Trump administration. And ditto, by the way, to the top prosecutor, the top aide who was at the protest from the prosecutor's office, literally, somebody named Jamel Lundy, Hennepin County. He's a prosecutor there. And by the way, the top prosecutor there is Soros backed. So you just imagine the kind of person there. And Mary Moriarty. Right, you remember Mary Moriarty? She's the one who refused to cooperate with ICE. She let people go. She let rapists and murderers. Horrible. Like illegals got a slap on the wrist. Or left the courthouse and reoffended days later. So this Moriarty is a piece of work. You're not going to see these prosecutions. So really, it comes down to federal law. You've heard about the KKK Act, which is now, 42 U.S.C. 1985, referred to as the Ku Klux Klan Act. Let me explain to you what this is when we come back and how this works. And and take you actually through some of the stuff. It's all on video. So the evidence, the basis for bringing these charges, I think, was documented by the criminals themselves. So let's see where we go from here. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, good to be with you as always. Happy Tuesday, 20th of January. So, big news today. CBS reporting that, J.D. Vance and his wife, Usha Vance, have announced that she's pregnant with their fourth child. This is great news. I think, Robbie, I think you're exactly right. I think a lot of young men in America look up to J.D. Vance. After all, he's a relatively young guy who's done very well for himself. He's got a family. He's done it the right way. He is unapologetic for conservatism broadly, but I also think for young men who have been maligned, let's say, by leftist orthodoxy. And so I think this is great. And I've been meaning to say this more often on my show. And if you just permit me to digress as I catch up on this news here and the story, I got married, and some of you know the story and know my background, but some of you don't, and so I'll just retell this briefly. I got married at a time, let's say, generally in this country, when it became fashionable to delay marriage, to delay family. And, I got married at 25, and we had our first son, our first child at 27. And I had many friends. It's not a judgment thing. It's a fact. I had many friends of mine who enjoyed a lot of fun times in life, right? Who were single for another decade, maybe decade and a half. They certainly got to experience a lot of fun. They did things that I didn't have an opportunity necessarily to do. And I remember a little bit in my 30s thinking, gosh, I just really ran into this having kids thing, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful, but the grass at times seemed a little greener on the other side of the fence. And if there's one bit of advice that I could give someone who is 18, 19, and 20, it's don't put off marriage forever. And certainly don't put off having kids. And if you're thinking maybe you don't want kids, that's a big decision. It's a far bigger decision, in other words, to say, I'm not going to have kids, than it is to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to this. Because believe it or not, you figure it out along the way. And the reward from having kids, and I say this now with an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old and an almost 13-year-old, the rewards of having those kids are it's immense. It's incredible. And I know people who had kids young, who had virtually no money and made it work. I know people who were, having kids when I was having kids, who were basically getting their postdoctorate, working as TAs at UCI or wherever, and they had 2 or 3 kids, and they made it work, right? I mean, meant of course maybe there wasn't a big annual trip to Disney World, but they were happy. And I look at this the plan of happiness in life, right? Is something, certain religions refer to that, right? Following certain steps. But one of the most important things to do as a young man is to get married. I'm just going to say it. It's to get married and to commit and to grow up. I know guys that are my age that are 45 years old and have a fair amount of money and were either never married or briefly married, but too selfish to make things work. I'm going to be honest about this. And they live extremely self-centered lives and they're miserable. It looks good on Instagram. It looks good on social media. You know, it looks like they're having a lot of fun, but these are men that are missing out on the greatest fulfillment life has to offer, which for a man is fatherhood. It really is. And for women, I'm confident it's the same. I just can't even imagine my wife living her life today. And if we didn't have 3 kids, folks, we could travel even more than we already do, and we could have more stuff and all, but it would be completely devoid of any meaning. And the love that you have with another person is, and those of you who've been through it and have had kids, is significantly greater when you've formed a family. And you're not going to hear that from your teacher, your miserable high school teacher, in the 8th, 9th grade, who is a leftist, freak, right? I mean, marriage gets talked down a lot in school and in college. And I remember having it I remember hearing it from so many of my my teachers along the way, just a lot of bad mouthing of marriage and of men in particular. And it's gotten only worse since I've been to school. So hopefully this is, this news from JD Vance and Usha Vance is going to be well received by young men across this country. All right. What to do? This insanity in St. Paul, Minnesota, the storming of the church. I'm looking at this, right? I went through some of the state charges. I don't anticipate anybody getting charged by the state because it's what the leftists will protect their own. And in fact, the state of Minnesota and the city of St. Paul, the city of Minneapolis, Twin Cities area, they're all run by blue, dyed-in-the-wool leftists. And so these protesters are working actually, on not on behalf, but in concert with the government. There's no question about it. Now, what's going to have to happen here is Pam Bondi, the DOJ, is going to have to come in and do something about it. Now, the KKK Enforcement Act of 1871, it's now a U.S. Code section, so it's federal law. In Section 3 of this particular law, and I quote, it says, prohibits 2 or more persons from conspiring to deprive any person or class of persons of equal protection of the laws or equal privileges and immunities under the laws, or preventing state authorities from securing such protections. Now, it's a lot of words. What does this mean? What is an equal privilege and immunity under the law? Freedom of worship is a fundamental constitutional right. If these people, together with Don Lemon, are storming a church and are deliberately disrupting a church service, are these individuals that are there, are these families, these children, able to exercise their constitutional right of worship? I played the clip at the top of the hour. It certainly doesn't seem like it. The entire service ground to a halt. And you're going to see apologists on CNN and MS Now and other left-wing shows say, but Sam, it was one time. How many people won't go back to church next Sunday for fear they'll be targeted again? How many people will stay home from going to their other church that wasn't targeted this past weekend for fear that their congregation, their church is next? That's taken into consideration when this is being analyzed legally, right? It's And I think it fits. I think it fits really great. And by the way, there is a deliberate targeting here based on race. There is a deliberate targeting based on people's politics. There is they call this a discriminatory animus, right? A driving motivation behind the action. And so, I mean, and by the way, the person that really does this is Don Lemon. So Don Lemon, you know, this is a disgraced clown who masquerades as a journalist, and he embedded with this group, meaning he was participating essentially here as an observer. Fine, okay, whatever. But he barged into the church along with the protesters, and he recorded interviews at the beginning of this, before the action got underway, as they were planning what they were going to do. So here is in the planning stages. Earlier, before they entered the church, Don Lemon talking about what was going to happen and interviewing some of the people there.
They're getting the operation together. Again, this is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out. Can't tell you what is going to happen, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show. It may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here. I turned our camera off of them because they're giving some critical information here. But there we go. Everybody's ready to go. We're on. We're not saying what it is, what's going on, but thank you. Tell us why you're doing this.
So
this is Nakima Levy Armstrong. She's on the show
Nakima
on Friday.
Levy Armstrong, civil rights attorney, longtime activist here in the community. This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual.
Oh, okay. Again, let me go back to the KKK Act. Here, the Enforcement Act of 1871, a conspiracy to deprive a person or class of purpose of equal protection of the laws or equal privileges and immunities under the laws. So they're coming there to deliberately, they're not there to voice their opinion outside of the church. They are there. If you're listening to this civil rights attorney who doesn't look like she sound like she's that qualified, it's literally laying it out on tape for Don Lemon, saying what? This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come, and then we disrupt business as usual. What do you think is business as usual at a church on a Sunday? Remember, the protester, the video I shared earlier, basically berating people here in the church about standing up for Somali and Latino communities. Okay, you nice lives with your latte. Somebody had a coffee cup. The kid looked like he was, 16. You're living real nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers, pretending to be Christians. Don Lemon, though, tries to interview the pastor, is asked to leave. This clip will be shown in court, I promise you, to establish that Lemon and everybody else here was not invited in. Okay? In fact, they were told specifically to leave, which they didn't.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will...
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live there's a Constitution and the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. Yeah. We're here to worship. Okay.
First Amendment right. You have a First Amendment right to go blast apart a gathering. This is crazy. By the way, I wish Don. I guess people had a First Amendment right to go into the Capitol on January 6th and just walk in there and disrupt things, right? We've heard nothing but that for 5 years from the left. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Back in a moment. Hi, the What's Right show is on, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 800-304-2000, 800-304-2000, samandashlaw.com, because you deserve what's right. Okay. Talking about this insane riot, I think is a way to describe it. Takeover of a church ceremony. No, it was a Sunday worship on Sunday 2 days ago in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, remember, there's been a lot of stuff going on in Minnesota. And you've got to understand the broader context of this. The Minnesota Democratic Party, the entire political establishment there, is fighting with every bit of power they can muster against the Trump administration. And the reason the reason that they are embracing all of these sort of almost guerrilla type tactics is because they understand that legally they are on the shakiest of grounds. Right? Trump is, if you've seen this, but the Department of Justice, before any of this happened on Sunday, has been calling up members of the government, of the Minnesota government, into the various grand juries that have been called. I think it's more than one, is my understanding, and is having them testify, is bringing other witnesses as well. Now, grand jury testimony is conducted all in secret. Generally, when you're called to a grand jury, you have to show up, and the Fifth Amendment prohibition against self-incrimination doesn't apply. I mean, you're not always able to have your lawyer there. So it's, you get called in, you get asked questions, you have to answer the questions because there's a determination there, not of guilt or innocence, but whether there are grounds to file charges. So this is why, what federal prosecutors use these grand jury proceedings for is to get a whole lot of information that then they later will establish a trial through other sources if they can't get it directly from the target. I keep saying this. Do you have any idea how absolutely freaked out Tim Walz and Keith Ellison and every other Democrat that participated in this fleecing of state and federal taxpayers in Minnesota? And the ICE fraud, because that's really what it is, the immigration enforcement fraud, the wholesale aiding and abetting of mass illegal immigration into the state, and using those illegal immigrants to hold on to political power, and then, of course, to fleece public benefits. The whole thing is an absolute scandal. And they are hoping that they can bend Trump and they can bend Republicans, the few that are standing up to this in Minnesota, with these sort of terrorist tactics. I don't think it's going to work. Yeah, Don Lemon, by the way, on Jennifer Welch's I've Had It podcast, He made it all about race. This is again, they're going to use this. They're going to literally use his words to file charges against him and others using the KKE Act. Listen to
people
this.
who are, in the religious groups like that. It's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America.
Identity, identity, identity. But you know what? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's something important to mention here. They have endlessly made everything about identity, and now they are actually the biggest purveyor of hate crimes of anyone out there, these new Democrats. Something wild. Sam Mirejovsky here. Another hour of the What's Right show up next. You know, Robbie, half the time I don't know if these headlines are real or if they're, the Babylon Bee or the Onion or something like that, if this is just pure satire. Sam Mirejovsky behind the What's Right microphone. Folks, I'm going to give you an example of this. Okay, I'm here during the break perusing what's going on and checking all the channels, and I find here an announcement that Canada has declared that it is preparing for armed conflict with the United States. This can't be real. It reminds me of the story over the weekend that Denmark and Germany were sending soldiers over to Greenland. Did you see this? And the German soldiers, Germany, the Luftwaffe, right? The German Air Force couldn't procure an airplane to send troops to protect Greenland from the Orange Man. So they had to borrow they had to charter, rent an airplane from a Polish charter company. I mean, some of you are students of 20th century history. It's a great irony where the German armed forces were like, I can't do it. Hey, Poles, can you help us out? This is so good. This is what you need to know. Trump is right. He is right. He's been telling everybody and anybody that will listen, talking to the Europeans, you guys, the government, the EU, and individual countries like France and Germany, for example, you guys are really stupid. Don't come at me with this NATO, hey man, NATO. When you guys decided to, on one hand, make Putin and Russia an enemy of the West, fine, acceptable position, but at the same time, decided to shut down all of your nuclear power plants and then buy gas and oil from Russia. These European leaders that are being elevated by Democrats in the U.S. as some sort of, brilliant, strategic, and thoughtful, leaders are so dumb that they are financing a war against themselves. Right? I mean, Putin, we're going to fight Putin. We're going to fight Putin. And by the way, okay, Mr. Putin, can we buy some natural gas? Because it turns out that we can't heat our homes in the wintertime because we decided to form coalition governments with the Green Party and with the Pirate Party and with whatever party, the Clown Party, that said we had to get rid of our nuclear power, and now we don't have any power. So this is what I'm saying. You can't take any of these people seriously. And if you read a news story today, any news story, and wait tonight, trust me, tonight you will turn on, if you decide for a little self-punishment, and you go, and sometimes I urge you to do this just to be reminded what absolute idiots these people are. Go on MSN now. And I promise you that if you watch it for 5 minutes, somebody somewhere is going to talk about how brilliant and thoughtful and enlightened the European leaders are. Now, there is enlightened leadership, by the way, in Europe. And the enlightened leadership in Europe is pro-Trump. The enlightened leadership in Europe wants a strong America. They would love to see Greenland be part of U.S. territory with American military bases ready to go closer to Europe, closer to the Arctic Circle, closer to, potential threats. Putin has some missiles. I don't know if you know this, but Putin has some very impressive missiles, and he's used some of them in Ukraine, and they are hypersonic, basically fireball missiles. They're called Oreshnik. And Robbie, have you seen some videos of demonstrations of these missiles? I mean, they are allegedly difficult to intercept. Now, I take it all, of course, with a grain of salt, but there is some concern here, and the Russians are not dumb, and they've got a fair amount of money because, of course, the Europeans keep buying their oil and and their natural gas. So, and when you look at the globe, when you look at the world from the top down, North Pole down, you realize that Canada and the U.S. by extension, we're actually very close to Russia if we go over the top of the globe. And having strategic, air command and interception ability in that part of the world, early interception ability would be, I think, critical. So this whole Greenland thing, and Canada now saying, well, we're going to prepare for a military conflict with the U.S. It is an absolute joke. People are not real. Carney went to China. You see that? He went. Carney's the new prime minister of Canada. Justin Trudeau. No, Justin Trudeau is out. Justin Trudeau was dating Katy Perry. By the way, they broke up. That's a big news item today. Robbie, are you devastated about that? I heard somebody say, I can't claim credit for it, that Katy Perry kissed a girl and didn't like it. It's a song. It's one of her songs. If you don't follow Katy Perry, it's okay. A fun fact, though, we sometimes here, living in Vegas, it's nice for us, Sherry and I, and sometimes with the kids, there'll be a concert. And if you live in Las Vegas, there's this huge benefit. You can get tickets last minute for a great deal. So we almost never plan ahead for concerts, and we get great deals on last minute tickets. And we ended up at a Katy Perry concert at Resorts World, and it was insufferable. Every little bit of it was insufferable. And we ran into one of our friends who was I won't name him, but he's an athlete in town. You would know who he is, and he is very conservative. This is why I wouldn't name him. And they were like 3 rows in front of us. A total coincidence. And he and I just kept looking at each other like, what the hell are we doing here? It was terrible. The whole thing was terrible. Anyway, so I guess Justin Trudeau, former Prime Minister of Canada, now no longer dating Katy Perry. I'll tell you, this weekend I was in Florida. Okay. I have a story from this that I'm going to share with you real fast. It's nothing big. It really crystallizes why we have to be careful. You and I and our loved ones have to be careful out there. And I'll share it with you. Okay, don't go anywhere. Quick break here. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. The What's Right Show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. 800-304-2000. Offices in California and Nevada. 800-304-2000. Because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
All right, here's my story. It's nothing that exciting. Robbie's all at the edge of his seat. It's not anything, it's something that probably has happened to many of you. And I want to share it with you, and I'm thinking about it in light of what's going on in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Boston, New York, LA, cities across the country. Sam Mirejovsky here, by the way, here on the What's Right Media Network, behind the What's Right microphone. Happy Tuesday, feels like a Monday. Okay, here's what happened. I'm with a buddy of mine, and I'm in Florida. I'm in Orlando, which now it's Florida, okay? It's not Minnesota. But it's Orlando, which is one of the bluer parts of Florida. I'll let you figure out why. But anyway, so we're walking out of a building, and my buddy is exuberant and loud. And we're walking out of the building, and he says something like, something about, well, Stephen Miller is who he was talking about. And he said, Stephen Miller, he goes, I just love this guy, Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller, of course, is a critical component of the new Trump administration. I'm just absolutely fantastic guy. He is Deputy Chief of Staff. He's overseeing the entire immigration enforcement policy, basically, on behalf of the president. Very loyal to the president and a brilliant guy. And Stephen Miller, okay, so he says something like he loves Stephen Miller. And this guy walking near us basically spins around. I didn't even catch what he said. It was something horribly profane. And because I later got told what it was, and I came almost sort of at us in a menacing way, but he didn't see my buddy before he spun around and wanted to get in his face. My friend is, let me just tell you this. There's not a bar fight that my friend wouldn't win, okay? So he spins around, this little spindly guy, ready to get in our faces, shouting an obscenity, series of obscenities, and then backs down and sort of runs away when he sees that he didn't necessarily want to take my friend on. I'm sure he was not intimidated by me, but my buddy for sure. And it got me thinking. As we were, got in the car and are driving away, I got it's actually dangerous out there to express yourself if you're a conservative. And let me give you an example of what would be very dangerous to express yourself. For example, not just that you like Trump, that will get you beaten up. These people, or worse, these people will want to kill you. But if you were to tell the people that were ranting and raving in that church, if one of the people there had said, you know what, not only do I think it's okay that Trump is deporting illegal immigrant fraud artists from Somalia, not only do I think it's okay that he's deporting child rapists who are here in the country illegally from Venezuela or Mexico or wherever, not only do I think that those things are okay, I think they're great. I think they're amazing. Can you imagine what would happen to that person? And it takes me to kind of an important realization about free speech. I think it really irritates me that Don Lemon there is lecturing the pastor who's just trying to calm the situation down and get everybody to leave. Do you know about free speech? Do you know about the First Amendment? But the left doesn't like free speech. They are the first to limit what you and I can say. They're the ones that push hate speech laws. They're the ones that wanted people silenced on Twitter, now X. They're the people that want any opposing opinion to be muted. And so they are, on one hand, they are huge when it comes to restrictions on speech, meaning the leftists. And then at the same time, they believe that the free speech rights in this country give them a license to trespass, to inflict acts of violence, to intimidate people, and worse. And it seems sort of at first blush like it's this double standard, that it's this, but boy, are these people stupid? Don't they see that this is very hypocritical? And then when you start to understand how the left operates, you realize there isn't a double standard. Their only value is power. All of this is about power. And I've been saying this from the beginning. As this whole mess of anti-ICE protests, for example, have been unfolding across the country, it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, let me give you an example here, right? It's not logical to stand in the way of a law enforcement officer who is apprehending a rapist, a child rapist, okay? Like nobody, nowhere, at no time thinks that that's a good idea. But these people do it because to them, it's not about the obvious necessity of enforcing laws and protecting public order. For them, it's about their access to power, their hold on power. And by the way, the more illegals that are in the country, the more voters, the more illegals in the country, the more public benefits, the more money is flowing into the coffers of various government groups, NGOs, and thereby to politically connected persons and into the campaign coffers of Democrats. And to some extent, there's only one thing that really matters. Like, does it help tear down capitalism and conservatism and the West generally and give power to the left? And if yes, then it's good. We conservatives, we actually value consistency. We value reason. We value common sense. And I love that some of these ICE officers, did you see the ICE agent who literally got in the face of not got in the face, but he's driving in his truck, and he basically makes a great argument back to the protester. This was a great clip that has gone viral over the last couple of days. Listen to this.
We're here to arrest a child sex offender. And you guys are out here honking.
Oh, they're not. No, we're pressed. We're not.
That vehicle right there is honking and impeding our investigations while we're trying to arrest a child sex offender. That's who you guys are protecting. Insane.
Insane. But they will gladly stand up for a sex offender. They will gladly beat you up in front of your family. They'll go after your kids. They will make your life absolutely miserable. And that's what they do. I mean, I just read, what was it, Matthew Swall, who's a kind of a Johnny-come-lately to Trump, and he admits this himself, right? He joined the Trump cause, like the last person to join the Trump cause in January of last year. And Swall has has been swatted. He has every day gets deliveries, pay at the door deliveries with instructions to wake his family up and bang on the door loudly. They've almost had to sell their home. I mean, it's terrible. This happens across the board. And the thing is and I welcome it. Like, please send it to me. Send me the instances where conservatives are swatting en masse people like Don Lemon. I mean, we just don't do it. And it takes me back to the story of what guy kind of wants to get up in our face, then he leaves. This was yesterday in Florida. And I say to my buddy, I go, in what universe would either one of us waste energy and words doing anything like that if we overheard somebody saying how great Kamala Harris is? I mean, like, if I overhear, and I do all the time, conversations of people being politically stupid, I'd maybe roll my eyes and I move on. I mean, the idea of stopping them and hurling obscenities at them just doesn't, no. And I bet you can relate to that for sure. Okay, I got to run here. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. I just got an email here from Mike during the break asking if the show is on Audible. Yes, Mike, I just responded to you, even sent you a link. The What's Right show is on Audible. And to let everybody know here, starting on the 16th of February, we will be switching our time here on KXNT to 6 p.m. And we'll be doing just 1 hour instead of 2. And we will the primary product will be I'll be on air, of course, but you can get the show before airtime, is my point. You can go and you can get it early as in the morning, day of. So it'll load first thing in the morning. So get up, you can grab the show, and you've got it. You can listen to it anytime during the day, and if you miss it, you can always grab it at 6 p.m. Okay. All right. I was just reading an article here on the break about turbulence on planes. They're claiming the turbulence is up. I don't know. I fly a lot, folks. Some of the worst turbulence I have ever experienced is flying between Southern California and Las Vegas on a summer day, when you've got the heat rising from the desert. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. And I've flew over the Andes once. Flew over the Andes. This is the giant mountain range that separates Chile and Argentina. That was wild too. I just like to keep my seatbelt on. That's the trick. I mean, you read this whole article and they're like, oh, here's all the smart things you can do. Look, just keep your seatbelt on when you're in your seat. Okay? Because if something hits, you can go to the bathroom, you can do your thing, but, just sit down and put your seatbelt on. And most of the people, they get hurt when plane goes into some crazy turbulence. There are people who just aren't wearing their seatbelt, or flight attendants who have to be out and about. So that is my recommendation. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I saw people writing about these stupid stories. Turbulence, always been a thing. Here's some updates. I mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to say it again here. This is the story from the New York Post. Waltz, Governor Timmy Waltz, or Walz, whatever, Frey, Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, are two of the Minnesota officials who are accused of hindering ICE, served with grand jury subpoenas by the FBI. The FBI, quote, has served Minnesota officials, including Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, with grand jury subpoenas for allegedly conspiring to hinder ICE operations. I'm telling you, folks, this is why every word that comes out of Frey's mouth and out of Walz's mouth, every word that these guys are saying is, we are we are doing the right thing. We are going to fight and fight because they want to frame this. They want to frame the very legitimate criminal prosecution that is coming their way as political retribution. They're already planning their defenses. Trust me, these guys have had to lawyer up and they're freaking out. This is why I told you this was coming. I said when Walz abruptly dropped out of the race, that was the smoke. And there's real fire behind it. I told you at the time that Walz, it was guaranteed that Walz somewhere at that point, when he dropped out of the race, was already aware that he would be indicted. It doesn't mean he's going to be convicted. I have to make that clear. But the indictment alone means he has to hire a lawyer. He has to free up some capital. It'll cost $1 million to mount a defense. Certainly hundreds of thousands of dollars. If he gets a good lawyer, I mean, these guys charge over $1,000 an hour, and it's going to take a lot of attorney time to see this case through trial. I mean, he's not going to plead guilty, so I don't know. I'm telling you, there is beneath the surface of all this, all this insurgent activity against ICE and against conservatives. Behind the surface is sheer, unadulterated panic on the part of the Democratic Party. I promise you. Harmeet Dillon, by the way, who is the DOJ civil rights head, was interviewed about this. It's funny because she got asked about Don Lemon and even some of these other ICE protesters that are claiming that they're journalists. You heard it in the ICE clip that I played where some crazy women were out there impeding an ICE arrest of a illegal immigrant child rapist. And the first thing that he goes, come on, you guys are in my way, and I'm literally off to get a child rapist. You guys are crazy. And he goes, we're journalists. We're journalists. They're all a bunch of journalists. It's really cute. Okay, here's what Harmeet Dillon says about journalists and their ability to get entangled in criminal conspiracies.
Journalism is not a badge or a shield that protects you from criminal consequences when you are part of a crime. And I think the videos show how close he was to these folks. I think further evidence will show more information about that. But he clearly knew, and he stated before going into the facility, it's on his own video, what was going to happen there. What was going to happen was a violation of federal law, federal criminal law. There were lawyers involved in this so-called protest, and their purpose was to terrorize people of faith in a house of worship. They were targeting a different pastor, not the one seen on camera, who they got information was a ICE supervisor. None of that matters. It's off limits to go into a house of worship to do your little protest. This is like basic what you learn in the first year of law school. It is a time, place, and manner restrictions on the First Amendment right of protest, and they were violated here in this case.
I love always explaining time, place, and manner because I want to. What does that mean, by the way? People always bring it up. So let's say you have the right to call Trump an a-hole, right? You have a right to do that. You have a right to call Barack Obama an a-hole. You can call him worse things than that. It's not prohibited. What happens when you show up on my street in front of my house with a bullhorn at 2 a.m. to tell me and the 20 people that live around me in my neighborhood that Trump is an a-hole? You may be allowed to express your opinion, but the time, 2 a.m., that you're expressing the opinion, the manner in which you are expressing it, with using a bullhorn, amplifying your voice such that it would wake people up, and the place, a residential neighborhood, all are going to work against you. This is why if you want to hold a protest, you got to get a permit. Why do you need a permit? It's not because the First Amendment requires a permit. It's because the police deserve. You have your right to say what you're going to say, but as soon as there's a larger gathering of individuals, the police need advance notice to make sure they are adequately staffed, i.e. hire officers on, bring them over to overtime people, etc. Get people there to ensure that everything moves smoothly. And I want you to know this because you are going to have one of your liberal friends tell you, well, they're just exercising their First Amendment rights. And you're going to say, sure, you have the right to say everything that they said. You have a right to say. I don't dispute that. But you're not allowed to interrupt a proceeding. And by the way, remember the CARE Act, you know what the CARE Act is? Do you know how many people the Biden administration went after for just quietly praying in front of a abortion clinic? And they made it, no, I'm telling you, listen, they went after people, guns drawn, 6 a.m. raids. And, excuse me, FACE Act. I'm sorry, Robbie, you're right, FACE Act. The FACE Act, they went after people who were just literally just praying the rosary outside of a clinic. They weren't shouting at anybody. And that's just the thing, right? Liberals will go to the ends of the earth to protect the things they care about, i.e. abortion. But if you want to worship in peace, they feel entitled to do that, and they'll call it their First Amendment right. And by the way, I've read through the FACE Act, some of these provisions, and it might very well apply, ironically, to what happened here, and not it could be used against Don Lemon and others. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it could well be used, and I just bring that up. That would be, of course, delightful. Now imagine Don Lemon, the self-declared gay, black, left-wing activist, getting charged under a civil rights era, preceding civil rights era, literally the KKK Act. People are going to make hay of this. They're going to say, well, that doesn't apply to me. He's black. He can get away with it. Not true. Since when is racial animus since when does it go one way? From the very beginning of his reporting, he talks about, hey, this is MAGA coded. We're bringing white people here to attack the white people. And the planning, he literally lays it all on tape. Don Lemon is such a dumbass. Just the worst. Oh, my gosh. Okay, quick break. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Back in just a moment. Sam Mirejovsky here for Sam and Ash Injury Law. Don't go at it alone, folks. You get hurt. You get, the first thing that comes at you is a whole lot of paperwork, a bunch of mail from the insurance company, phone calls, text messages, give us information, send us that document, on and on. You try to give them everything they need. You come to them palms up, and at the end of everything, you get screwed. You end up thousands of dollars upside down, money you owe out of pocket. And what happened to you wasn't even your fault. It's wrong. Now, at Sam and Ash Injury Law, we believe in you deserving what's right. It's that simple. It's not a lottery win. It's not a windfall. You deserve to get properly compensated. And the best part about it, it doesn't cost you anything out of your pocket to hire Sam and Ash. It's easy. A quick phone call. Sam and Ash starts working on your case. Doesn't cost you anything out of pocket. At the end of the case, you're fully compensated. It's that easy. And you literally don't have to worry about answering all the phone calls and all the text messages. Your lawyer does it for you. How novel is that? All right, Sam and Ash Injury Law. Offices in Nevada and California, 800-304-2000, 800-304-2000, salmonashinjury.com. law because you deserve what's right. All right, folks. The story just is so heartbreaking. There is a teacher, you've probably heard of him. There's a teacher in Ireland, Enoch Burke, who just got arrested again outside of his school. It's a boarding school where he has worked for many, many years. And Enoch Burke has been arrested over and over again for refusing to use fake pronouns. And, just as the police are rolling up to him on Sunday, he records to some news people that are standing there this video, this interview. It's just right before they bundle him up. You have to listen to this.
People should know that from beginning to end, this is all about transgender ideology, forcing it upon every school in the country, not just this school, every school in the country and the public at large, saying you will accept this. That's what all this is about. The guards, the courts, the orders, throwing me into prison, take me out again. You're being told you can't have your religious beliefs. You can't have your Christian convictions. You must bow to this. You must accept it. Everybody's silenced into submission. That's what this is about. And you can throw me in a prison cell, and you can silence me, but my conscience will bring me back to this gate, because I have a right to be here. When I was hired here, my contract didn't say that I had to call a boy they. It didn't say that I had to renounce my Christian beliefs. You do not have to bow to transgender ideology. You cannot be forced to accept it. We have our constitutional rights in this country.
And one thing I want to say is that the Constitution in the U.S., the First Amendment, it actually doesn't just protect your rights of what to say, right? It doesn't just protect you, give you the right to say what you want. Now, remember, not always at all times and in all ways and in all places, right? Time, place, and matter matters. But the other part of the beauty of the First Amendment is that we are not compelled to say things, right? That we are not compelled by the government to use silly pronouns like they to describe a boy, right? I don't know. Is this a quasi-governmental? In the U.S., it would come down to if it's a governmental school or not. A private school can enforce different things like this, but certainly would not go to jail over it. So the government is putting this guy in jail because he is refusing to go along with this farce that, by the way, is already fading in our country and fading other places around the world, including in even some European countries. The huge transgender craze, and I talked about this with Steve Gruber on Real America's Voice last week, that took over our country as a storm. It's already on its way out. And there's still these idiots in Europe, the same people that walk around thinking they're so enlightened and they're so much better than Donaldus Maximus, President Donald J. Trump, and just, I mean, how could Trump, oh my goodness, Trump and America were rubes, and yet they put people in prison who don't go along with this insanity. Now, why does this matter to you and me here in America? You're probably thinking, well, I don't know. My grandma, my great-grandma was Irish. I'll never be there. I'll never go there. Like, what does this matter? Well, the reason is the left is the same everywhere. And trust me, the American left, and these will be, I hope I am wrong about this, but I think there are significant chances that if the American left regains, if and when, it'll happen, regains control over the White House and over both houses of Congress, they will expand the Supreme Court and they will begin to change via judges like Ketanji Brown Jackson, who doesn't know anything about the law, but makes stuff up as she goes, via justices like Ketanji Brown Jackson, will change the meaning of what the First Amendment is. They'll completely reorder it. Pay attention to what leftists do when they have the power to enforce things the way they want to in their brains. Every one of those people that stormed that church agrees wholeheartedly with what's going on in Ireland. I haven't talked to them, but I can just tell you that's guaranteed. Every one of those people is saying to themselves, good going, Ireland. Wish we could put people in prison here who don't go along with our agenda. And then they run around and they call, Trump the Nazi and the fascist and all of that. Remember, it's Darvo. It's turning things around, upside down, and then attacking with it. Reversing the victim and the aggressor, the perpetrator. It's what the left does. So unfortunately, I hate to say this. You say, well, Sam, we could never completely change the meaning of what the First Amendment is. The First Amendment is whatever the justices say it is, and the Supreme Court can change the meaning of the Constitution. It's how our system works. And trust me, when you listen to the liberal justices, they believe that the Constitution is a living and breathing document that can be grossly reinterpreted in later years. Okay, gotta run. That's the music. Folks, I'll see you here tomorrow. Be safe out there. Keep the faith. We got this.